You know you could be doing more, but you're just not doing it. We're kind of taught to let our environment dictate our reality. It should be the other way around. Your internal focus should then dictate how your external reality happens. Welcome to episode 1 of the Warrior's Path podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about my feelings on the way that most men are disconnected from their true power. They feel like they're adrift, that they're weak, that they're stuck, and a lot of the time they don't actually know why this is. So for a long time I've worked with men, women, anybody basically to help them develop like the superhuman version of themselves is how I used to talk about it. And then a few things happened in my life over the last few years and I drifted away from that. I focused back internally again, walked the warrior's path for myself to find out what it is that really drives me and what I like to actually do and how I want to spend my life and spend my time. So I've actually got a few notes here beside me because a few different points that I want to touch on. And over the years as a martial arts instructor, as a hypnotherapist, as a coach, I've worked with a lot of people that come to me and the main problem that they have is vision and drive. So they don't actually know who they are or where they're going or what they're trying to do. So I decided I would go back. This wasn't a light decision. Like I've spent probably about 2 months thinking about this and then another month like really zoning in on what I'm doing. And before when I had a podcast, I just would have like freestyled, and again that fitted what I was doing. But for now I'm going to stick to a few notes, so I'll look over here and I'll come back and forward. And what I'm trying to do is to help men reclaim their strength. And it's not about aggression, it's not about ego. I think that's the biggest issue we have at the minute is through social media, through just life and things that are coming at men. Being manly and alpha has got misconstrued, and now an alpha male is the loudest, obnoxious, arrogant, narcissistic person, when that's not what being an alpha male is about. It never was about that. It's just in the last few years it's sort of been taken over by social media and fake gurus, people that haven't actually lived the path or lived the path. They're just trying to make a quick bit of money. So these are a few reasons why I think that modern men feel disconnected and weak, and it's lack of initiation into manhood. So whenever I was younger, you followed your dad, you followed the bigger boys. I was lucky to go and study under masters and gurus and specialists, but even before that you spent your time like running around. Like where I grew up, it was almost like the ancient cultures. There was certain things like you had to get through to be more manly. Like you had to play for the smaller football team before you could get onto the bigger football team. You had to play outside the shop football and then you could get to the football pitch. Like there was rites of passage, and now everything's sort of social media focused, that none of that really exists anymore. There's no rite of passage, there's no expectation or like drawn line of when you become a man. Like you become a man when you have your first fight, whenever you have your first argument, whenever you have your first pint. Like those used to all be things that you pick one of them and that's a good transition from childhood to manhood. And now that there's nothing like that anymore. You just watch social media, you listen to people, believe what they're saying. Like even what I'm saying now, like question it, don't just believe it wholeheartedly. Like I've lived an exceptional life, so I have a lot of experience working with people and working through things for myself. So comfort becoming the enemy is another point. Modern society, social media, AI, all of that sort of stuff, how to make a side hustle, how to make more money than you make in your regular job whilst you sleep, all of those stuff, it's geared towards ease, making you comfortable, making everything convenient, like fast food. Like whenever I first started training, you had to make your own protein bars and stuff, and now you can just go to the shop and buy one. They're worse for you than the ones that you would have made yourself, but they're convenient and easy. So you want to look at that like comfort is the enemy. You don't grow in comfort. You don't, like, if you think of a tree, like a tree keeps moving higher because down in the ground it's getting blocked by other trees, the sun's getting blocked out, so it has to grow so it can get higher. So it's always moving towards something rather than just staying where it's comfortable without growth, where it would stagnate and die. And I believe that happens to the best of us as well. It will happen to humans, men, as well as animals. Everything that stays within its comfort zone. Like, again, if we use another analogy of whenever I used to spar, we sparred a lot of people that had no intention of ever competing, and they used to talk about how good they are, and for me, they were never actually tested. They sparred in a comfortable environment. There was instructors around. It was safe. We had headgear. We were able to say, like, only use 70% power, only use 50% power, which I know is relative, but when we did that, these guys believed that they were like kickboxers. So this is in the kickboxing class. They believed they were amazing kickboxers. They were better than the average person because the average person hadn't trained it, but they weren't combative. They hadn't actually tested, so they were doing ridiculous stuff in sparring that you wouldn't have got away with in the ring. So they stayed there. They stayed in that comfort zone, and just like, none of them are still practicing it now. Whereas because I practiced, went out and trained with people that were better than me and competed, I seen what worked, what didn't work, and I actually tested it. So for me, my comfort zone always expanded because I was always driving to do something better, something to become better at what I was doing, basically. Like 1% better every day is such a simple thing to say, but a very hard thing to implement in your life. The nice guy epidemic. So we're now taught to be passive and agreeable and avoid conflict. I'm not saying that you should go out and start arguments, but what I liken it to the old school saying of it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You want to be, if you can't stand up for yourself, if you can't be confident in your understanding of the world, confident in your message, confident in who you are, then you're not really choosing to be nice. You have no choice. Because I study a lot and I meditate a lot, and I actually live this lifestyle. I live the warrior's path. When I get into a confrontation, whether it's physical or verbal, I know I can hold strong there because I'm comfortable in that environment, because I've been in it. I tested it on, like sparring, if we use it as an example, and then I moved into real experience with it, with my old jobs. Even when I was doing the hypnotherapy, like, I worked with a lot of people that had anger issues, so you get into situations where people get angry. Because I have a choice of being the nice guy or being the dominant guy, because I have that choice, then I'm able to deal with people a lot better and then deal with life situations. Because we're taught to be passive and agreeable and avoid conflict, it gets to the point where it sounds bad, but you become weak. You're mentally, physically, spiritually weak because you haven't tested yourself. And again, this all comes from like things like social media and like comparison culture. You're looking at someone like the Andrew Tates of the world, just to name one, and the amount of people that just jumped on that and wanted to be like this guy. And I know you're probably thinking now I talked about kickboxing and I'm bald, but we're nothing alike. everybody jumped on that. They wanted to be like that guy, but they were only seeing the highlight reel of his life. And then obviously, if you know anything about his life, took a mad turn, which kind of proved that he wasn't living the alpha male lifestyle that he claimed. And again, that's not what I'm talking about. When I say alpha male, I don't want alpha male as in bravado and narcissism and thinking you're amazing. I want it, like, my whole focus is the internal strength. If I build internal strength, then my external world will meet that, rather than if I look for my external world. So a lot of people talk about manifesting. They want to manifest the job, the partner, the car, the house. I want to manifest the best version of me possible by doing all the things that I need to do to create that. And when I manifest that version of me, everything else will come with that. Like I live a much happier life when my focus is an internal one rather than when it's external. And the problem with a lot of people is they want to be external. They want the house, they want the car, they want everything like that. So if you feel lost or weak or stuck, like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility to fix it. So it's not your fault because it's what we're taught at school. Sit down, shut up, do what you're told. You're taught not to fight, not to argue, not to stand up for yourself. Be nice, be quiet. So it's not really your fault. You did the best you could with the information you had at the time of having it. But now it is your responsibility to do something about it, to fix it. And this is what this podcast is about, and everything else that I'm going to be posting around this. So hopefully now, not that you need it, but you're getting a bit of permission to start to step back into your, I was going to say step into your manhood, but that doesn't sound right. Step back into your manliness, like what the old warriors did, what the samurai did, what the Shaolin monks did. Like, step into building your internal strength so that you can create, and like, the stronger you are mentally, the more you'll be able to create an external life that you love, and it will be magnetized as well to people, things, experiences that fit that will actually come to you. So my second point is the hidden cost of living below your potential. I noticed this over the last few months when I've been thinking about this. I've been just asking people about, like, their potential. Do they live up to their potential? What holds them back, or what drives them? And a lot of people don't actually know. So in the simplest of terms, like, weakness leads to depression. Whenever you don't know what you're capable of, or you're not really rising to your ability, you start to get a bit of self-doubt, a bit of self-loathing, a bit of anxiety, a bit of depression. And it's because there's a disconnect. You know you could be doing more, but you're just not doing it. And it's hard with the environment, because we're kind of taught to let our environment dictate our reality, but really it's our internal, it should be the other way around. Your internal focus should then dictate how your external reality happens, but a lot of the time that's not what happens. And the reason for that is lack of passion, lack of drive. Whenever you don't have a mission. So everything I've ever done, so I've looked over this, and if you go through my social media, you'll see that I've done different things over the years. But if you come right down to the center, it's always been about learning, passing on my learnings, helping people, and just being the best version of me that I can be, and helping others to do exactly the same. So even though I've been coming at these from different paths, they all lead to the same thing. Like, personally, I meditate every day. I do some form of training every day. Maybe I'll miss the odd day here. I journal every single day. I'm actually journaled. I was looking at this before the podcast. I've done 1,620 days. I know I've only missed one day out of that, and it was literally just because I forgot to do it. But and in them 1,600 days, a lot has happened in my life, but I still I still focused on the things that I know are making me stronger and making my life easier, even when everything's completely gone to shit. As long as I keep stacking those little habits on top of each other, it helps me come through whatever it is that I was in. The only way out is through, as they say. So whenever you're thinking about this, like living below your potential, start to ask yourself, like, what is it that you do that really like lights a fire on you, that like in 5 years will create a different style of life? So like I've wrote here, if you don't step up, what will your life look like in 5 years? Will it be more of the same, which is bad? Will it be worse, which is worse? Or like, what will you have lost by then? So maybe you'll just maintain, nothing will change, everything will just be exactly how it is and the way it's been. But most likely you will get physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually worse. When you have no drive, no passion, you stop looking after yourself. You stop exercising, you stop caring about what you eat. You sit around, you stop listening to this sort of podcast and you start listening to the news or reading the paper or things that pull you down. So ask yourself, like, what's your life going to look like in 5 years if nothing changes? And if it's going to be amazing and spectacular, then keep doing it. But if it's going to be worse or even just the same, imagine 5 years from now everything's just the same. That'll be very boring. We're not keen on that either. So throughout my years, I've studied with gurus and masters of martial arts, hypnotherapy, loads of different areas. So I'm going to sprinkle some of these into the podcast and some of these into my social media posts. If there's anything particular you want me to talk about, then just reach out. Or if you've any insights after you've listened to this or during it, then reach out as well. But one of the things that I focused on a lot through my Shaolin training was that strength comes through discipline. So like I've wrote here, the Shaolin monks trained every day. And it didn't matter what was going on, you just did it. And that's what I used to do. Like, I just didn't miss a day. It did not matter if I was injured, what was happening in life. So that led to a lot of injuries, as you would imagine, over the years. So I changed that a little bit. I do something that's beneficial internally every day. So if it's training, meditating, journaling, breathing exercises, getting out in nature, I do something that I know is going to force my life to elevate for me to be better. So even when I'm down, which has happened a lot, like the last thing I'll not get into in this episode, but I learned to be vulnerable for a change, which I never was. I was the prove it guy. I was a guy that just lived an extraordinary, superhuman life. But because I did a lot of that on social media, I'd sort of put myself in a box without really noticing that I wasn't allowed to be vulnerable. I wasn't allowed to have down days. It was always about being this superhuman guy. I still believe I'm superhuman. You can go back and look at my last photo that I posted. I believe that because I do things that most don't, and I've had experiences that most don't. And I believe everyone can build a superhuman version of themselves as well. And this is what all of this is about. So the idea is doing something every single day. So discipline will smash motivation. You can be motivated for a while, but discipline is what keeps you going. But even if you don't have discipline, you just do it. Just do something every day. So have something that you do every day that you know is going to make you better. Like it could be as simple as listening to a podcast like this. This will help you to master your internal battles. So back in the day, like Marcus Aurelius, people like that, they always taught us that you can't control your outside world, but you can control your response to it. If you're someone like that's in a poor me attitude all the time, like why is this always happening to me? Try to change that around. Instead of why is it always happening to me, what if this was happening for me? So sometimes the worst thing that happens in your life can give you the biggest breakthrough. Now, it would be amazing if we didn't have to go through shit and hell to have these breakthroughs, but sometimes that's just the way it works. So you'd hear Bob Proctor and other coaches talking about a paradigm shift, and paradigm shift, the most likely way you're going to have a paradigm shift, which is a change in your belief, your understanding of who you are, is when something dramatic happens. So sometimes we just have to go through that. But if you're self-focused internally every day, getting stronger, then when these things happen, you can actually not quickly, but you can improve your response to that. And then over time, I'm not saying that I respond all the time perfectly, but over time your response gets better. You become someone who reacts rather than is reactive. So the other way to look at that is, even if everything was terrible, but you were trying to do something good for yourself, it's going to get better. Even if you don't know how to fix all this, or you think it's the end of the world and you just cannot grow or get through or get out of this position, just start focusing internally, start to meditate, start to do a bit of exercise, look after yourself, eat healthier. All that will help, and then the happy accident of that is everything outside that, your external world, starts to get easier, starts to improve. The way of honor and duty. So the samurai just weren't guys with swords. They had a whole code and ethos. And if you live with honor, discipline, and that's internally focused, so honor yourself, be disciplined in yourself. Don't worry about honoring other people or like looking at social media and putting these people on pedestals. Honor yourself, how you're living your life, how disciplined you are. Like the samurai took it to extreme. They were all about like, be ready to face death every day. We don't want to do that. I'm not going to get into it now, but I'm a believer in everything's energy, so death isn't the end anyway. So, but that's for a different day. We want you to think about honoring yourself. So when, like, if you watch this now and you pause it, take 5 minutes and ask yourself, how have I honored myself today? Would I look at this 5 years ago and look at myself and be proud of where I am, proud of who I am? Or are there changes that I need to make? When you start to ask yourself these deep questions, you start to get deeper answers. Instead of why me and poor me and this is all terrible and I can't believe it's happening to me, you start to ask yourself, like, is the way I'm living my life creating this? Am I settling in work? Am I settling with a partner? Am I settling for being a weak version of myself, a weak man? Or am I going to do something about this? Am I going to start to change? Am I going to actually ask the questions and then take the actions? So the first step to reclaiming your power is just realizing that strength is not built overnight. It starts with one step. So this could be your one step, listening to this and just making the decision now, I am going to improve. Pick one way. So one of the things that I would have got clients through is just an action challenge. So for the next 24 hours, observe every moment where you felt weak and then just write them down. So if you felt weak, if you felt hesitant or you avoided something, write them down. Writing that down will make it more clear to you, instead of just what most people do is they'll have a situation where they felt weak, like they didn't speak back to their boss or question their partner or speak up whenever they got the wrong order at a restaurant. Whatever it is, sometimes we just shut down for an easier life. But an easier life, when you do it that way, it becomes a hard life because every day everything's a struggle. What if the next time I go, it happens again, so on and so forth. What you want to do is look at it, write it down, and then ask yourself, what could I have done differently to make that worse? What could I have done differently to make that better? And what can I learn from that moving forward for future interactions? So there are 3 questions I ask all the time when anything happens that I would consider to be negative, that I would consider to be a bad situation. I ask myself those 3 questions. So ask yourself those 3 questions after you've wrote them all down. So just to round up, Comfort is a trap, and being truthful to yourself is the way out. So being truthful about the fact that you are in your comfort zone, that you're not even trying to get out of it, be truthful about that, and that will start to change the way you look at things. You either build yourself or your life will build you. So you build yourself up internally, you focus on what you want to improve on, or things that happen in life will weigh down on you, and that will create the person that you are in 5 years. So decide what you want to do. Do you want to be the person that builds yourself from the inside out, or do you want to be the person that just lets life happen, and then 5 years from now you are whatever way you are? Whereas do the internal one, you can visualize where you're going to be, who you're going to be, how you're going to interact with people, how you're going to interact with yourself, your surroundings, your environment, and ultimately how you're going to live your life. You're going to choose. So it's either let it happen or choose. And I really hope that you decide that choosing is the one that you want to do. And then finally, the warrior's path. It's a call to reclaim your power, like a life of purpose led with integrity. So a life with purpose is so much better than just aimlessly moving around. And I know because I've done both multiple times in my life, but because I have these foundations, I keep being able to pull myself back and redirect myself. So this isn't just about self-improvement, it's about self-transformation. So self-improvement is where you do one or two wee things for a short amount of time and you hope to yourself, right, I hope that works. Whereas self-transformation is you constantly visualize who you're going to be. I see the version of me in the future and I keep moving towards them. And every time I catch up with them, the new version is made, and I'm constantly, it's a never-ending road, it's a never-ending path to fulfillment in all areas of your life. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, then please reach out to me, and I'll speak to you again on the next episode.